everybody. Welcome to this episode of Think Business. Look forward to talking with David Steele. David, good to connect with you. You're an entrepreneur, have a really big restaurant portfolio, One Wealth Advisors, onewealth.net, founder and managing partner of that. And, let's kind of start there. If somebody were to go to your website, one of the things that I really like is if somebody goes to your website is your financial life simplified. You go again, it says your financial life improved, your financial life evolved. But let's start with simplified, because I think a lot of times people can get scared of this topic. And maybe have a hard time getting back to simple. I think they get stuck in getting back to simple. And so how do you get people unstuck to simplify?
Well, first of all, I blame my industry. I started in the business in 1991. I've seen over and over and over again my industry confuse consumers, making what is a relatively simple concept of financial planning so complex to justify their existence. I don't blame consumers for being confused. I blame my industry for confusing them. Generally, people should be debt-free. It's pretty simple. Maybe you have mortgage debt to buy a home. The IRS incentivizes you for that. But it's pretty simple. If you're going to buy a home, maybe you have mortgage debt, but no other debt is logical, especially with where interest rates are. That's a very simple concept. But our consumer-focused industry wants to lend infinite amounts of money to people, and everybody's worried about their credit score. I tell people, don't worry about your credit score. Don't borrow money. Keep money in emergency. Keep 6 months of savings and monthly spending in savings, and max out your retirement plans. And in those retirement plans, diversify. If everybody did what I just said, we'd have a much, much healthier balance sheet across our country with individuals. So it's now we do have clients that have tens of millions of dollars of net worth, and things get more complicated when you're talking about estate tax and trust planning, et cetera, et cetera. So there is complexity when you get more and more wealthy. But what we try to do is we use Occam's razor, parsimony. The simplest solution is usually the best solution. And we try to push away all of the complexity where possible.
Yeah, it's great. So when you go over that with someone, and that's a great review, what's kind of in hindsight one lesson they're learning about, how they've looked at money versus their evolved, perception of money and savings and wealth once you talk to them? What's that typical epiphany lesson that is the change?
I can't generalize, because I see people's relationship with money as a very psychoanalytic rich territory.
Yeah.
And I have a saying to people, which is 2 + 2 = 4, even when it feels like it equals 5, or even when it feels like it equals 3, meaning we have lots of our clients or prospective clients we've talked with that have a very healthy relationship with money. And honestly, the work we do with them is the easiest, but they're probably the rarest. Yeah. Most people either feel like they have more than they do or can afford more than they can actually afford, regardless of how much wealth they have, or feel like they can afford less than they can afford. Having self-awareness around your limitations in this area is really, really helpful. But we see it as one of our main jobs to help people identify what their relationship with money is and dig in deep and unpack that.
Let's talk about that. Like, as a mentor to people, when you are working with them on their relationship with money, how do you do that?
Well, first of all, it starts with math. We can quite easily help people articulate their goals and then unpack the why of their goals. Are you sure those are your goals? I mean, I think we as a society rightfully or wrongfully run through life without really asking ourselves the questions as to whether typical goals should be our goals: marriage, kids, go to college, retire. I'm not being critical of any of these goals, but I am saying that everybody should ask themselves the question as to if each of these goals are their goals, or if they're goals that their family or society or culture has put on them.
Yeah.
But articulating goals that are authentic to who you are, trying to quantify those goals, assuming they're financial goals. Even if they're not financial goals, you can, once you have a goal identified, it becomes pretty clear what a strategy to achieve that goal is. And so when it comes to money, we can help people articulate goals, quantify them, develop a strategic plan mathematically to see what the path is with certain assumptions to achieve those goals. And then we can look and say, this is your reality. The reality is you want these things, but you can't afford these things.
Yeah.
Or you don't want certain things we think maybe you should consider affording, because look at the projections. You're going to die too rich based on what you said.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. So, I think sometimes, how do people, when you're mentoring people with, I read a great book, The Psychology of Money. I don't know if you read that book.
Yep.
Did you like that book?
It was a long time ago, but yes.
Yeah. I enjoyed that book, but I think sometimes, and I'm not in your field, but in my coaching business, I'm working with solopreneurs to Fortune companies, everything in between. And I see that people sometimes worry about, they have a block of making more money maybe than their parents. They've got they feel like maybe they don't deserve to make more money. How do you deal with people when you're talking on that level? I mean, we're not really talking about investing right now, but getting over that psychological piece of their connection to money.
I'd say 99% of the work we do with people has nothing to do with investing, and it has to do with everything you just talked about. It's yeah, I mean, what I said earlier about helping people articulate and unpack goals. You just said make more money than their parents. What a terrible goal. I mean, the goal makes it is all ego based. It makes no sense. It may be that they need to make more money than their parents to achieve their authentic goals that we've helped them identify, but just the simple superficial goal of make more money than their parents, that's all ego. So it really is just spending time empathetically and lovingly and consistently with people to help shine a light on some of these flaws, I guess you could call them.
Good. I love it. You do good work for people, helping them and probably being a voice that they need to hear. Let's do a mini business course. You're an entrepreneur. You have your advisory firm. You have 7 restaurants. What does it take? Let's do a little mini business course on what it takes to be an entrepreneur today.
People.
Right? Yeah.
Always people. Yeah. I don't care. You said solopreneur, which frankly, I've never heard of that term, but I really like it.
Yeah.
It's people. Show me a solopreneur, and within a half a second, I could identify the person you're speaking of could not succeed without people.
Yeah.
And show me a company that's scaled. It's people. Always people, whether it be team members, customers, it's people. If I was less lazy, I would write a book called Debunking the Polymath, because I've been called a polymath before, because I do all these weird things and entrepreneur, business, arts, etc. And I'm like, it's not polymath. I understand how to coalesce people collaboratively around a singular idea. That's what a polymath is. So look at Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, etc., and I will show you people that understood that to get things done, you need people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in one of my companies I started, my biggest challenge with the CEO, the person that we've put in the position to run the company, he and I started the company, but he runs it. He's 8 years in, and he still struggles with the fact that people don't perform at the standards that he has for himself. And he just had a child recently, and I say, what's the difference in your daughter and your team members? Like emotionally, what's the difference? Because if your daughter exhibited these behaviors, you wouldn't grow frustrated. Well, you may grow frustrated with her, but you certainly wouldn't dismiss her. Whereas somebody who's on one of your teams, you get angry and think about letting them quit or firing them or whatever. There's a delta between how you think about your child and how you think about your team members. For me, the difference between family, friends, and business colleagues, there is no difference.
Yeah.
It's always people. So for me, my answer will always begin and end with people.
Yeah. It's interesting. I agree with you. And I think people it's so important. And I find sometimes people don't put enough time and energy in recruiting. When you look at businesses, a lot of times what I see is, it's either a people issue or it's a training issue. And a lot of times people aren't, hiring the right people. And if they are, they're not training them the way they necessarily need to grow them. Like your website says, maybe evolve them. And so what would be number two? So you have the right people on the bus. What's number two?
Well, I want to push back a little bit on the recruiting and hiring. Admittedly, I've never run a company with thousands of employees where we can incubate each employee. And a smaller company, you can incubate each employee. You can bring somebody in at the very ground floor and train them across the entire business. Generally, my companies have a philosophy of promote from within rather than hire from the outside, because you already know the person's strengths and weaknesses, and you can manage around those things. And I am often disappointed when we hire in any of my companies from the outside. And I'm rarely surprised when I promote somebody from the inside. And so, yes, having training programs matter. But again, hiring, to me, I remember I started in 1991 at this investment firm, and the guy we worked with used to say, desire plus discipline equals success. And he said that the word I left out of there intentionally was talent, because talent is, you can have all the talent in the world and be crappy. We see it in sports all the time with people that never live up to their capabilities. And so I just think, like, being patient with people, nurturing them, working with them, and promoting from within that's how we've succeeded in all of the businesses I've started.
Yeah, I think patience is a really good one. So,
yeah, but our society doesn't really, you see people. I mean, the idea of mass layoffs, and it's, maybe because companies are publicly traded and they are, the executives are dependent upon the stock price in order to develop their own personal wealth. But it seems to me you have groups of people, they do these large, massive layoffs. And I just think to myself, I will bet you anything that 5 years from now, that company is going to be hiring a lot of those same people, or the same type of people, right back. Yeah. And the cost of firing people, severance, hiring people back, it's just fascinating to me. It's like, hey, make less money for a while. It's okay. The world won't come to an end. Stick with people.
Yeah, good. I like it. Let's talk about the restaurant business for a minute. Through the last couple of years, through COVID, it's had a lot of ups and downs. Talk about a people business from the moment you enter. To everybody ordering something on the side and a little bit different, and this and the other. Talk about your restaurant businesses and how you've applied to really create the experience with your people.
Well, it started in the first business plan we wrote, where for our first restaurant, where we talked about hiring people was going to be based on optimism, how much employees smiled. We opened our first restaurant in 2009. Maybe you're old enough to remember what 2009 was. It was right after 2008. We were trying to raise money from investors in 2008, the credit crisis. That was really hard. But we had lines around the block for our interviews for our first restaurant, like dozens and dozens of people. We had to interview 5 people at a time, and everybody came in with these crazy resumes, and we were looking for something that they didn't realize we were looking for when interviewing them: how optimistic, happy, how much they smiled, and we thought that was going to create a great culture. And so we think that a customer's experience in a restaurant starts at the top. That is, how do we feel about our lives? Are we happy? Are we fulfilled? Are we expressing the importance of our team members to have happy, fulfilled lives? And the customers, we think, are going to feel that. So that sounds a little hippy dippy, but it's something we deeply believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's great. I am older. In 2008, I took over my commercial real estate office, where I was a broker in, and I took over August 4th of '08, and the market crashed in September. And I remember it very, very well. It was, and then grew that office back up, and then the world started coming back to life, kind of March 2010, and those were some crazy times. Those were some.
What a great time to start a business.
Great time to start a business.
I mean, it's like when things are great, don't get indebted, chill out, take it easy. It's okay to not make as much as you possibly could if you swung for the fences.
Yeah.
When things are rough, roll up your sleeves, get to work, and go acquire more customers. And I don't care what business it is. And if you're not indebted and you can afford to survive and you live within your means, it's pretty easy, actually, when things are tough economically, to roll up your sleeves and get to work.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's do a quick speed round. What's a book or a TED Talk that's had a big impact on you?
Well, oh my goodness, I don't watch too much TED Talk.
Or a book.
I am reading a book right now called Demon Copperhead, which is one of the best books I've ever read by, I think her name is Barbara Kingover. And it is a very important story about survival, about a kid who goes through foster care, eventually gets addicted to painkillers, et cetera. And it's moved me maybe like no other book has ever moved me. And I'm actually just finishing that book right now.
Mm. That sounds intense. I'm reading Tesla's autobiography right now.
Elon Musk's?
No, not Elon Musk. Tesla's.
Oh, Tesla, the guy who actually invented electricity.
Correct. It's really, he's a fascinating guy. He's a really, really fascinating guy. Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Finish the sentence. How can everybody who overcomplicates things keep it simple?
Well, for me, it all comes back to human motivation, and that we all want to be loved and valued. And if we look at every situation that involves other people, we'll probably see at base, we're looking for love and value. And if we look at that, we can see at base motivation, and it probably simplifies things. Again, sorry to get hippy dippy.
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, I appreciate it, David. I enjoyed talking to you a little bit. Tell everybody kind of what restaurants, because I didn't really mention those. What restaurants do you have?
They're all in California. The first restaurant we opened is called Flour Plus Water, like the ingredients for dough, FLOUR, Flour Plus Water. But we have a few other restaurants. We have a craft cocktail bar in San Francisco called Trick Dog, and another more casual Italian restaurant called Penny Roma. And then I wanted good food up in Tahoe, where I live part-time. So I opened with a chef from my old restaurant in San Francisco, moved him up there, and we opened a couple of restaurants in Tahoe in the Truckee area called Great Gold and Tangerine Bistro.
It's cool. It's cool.
In California, come visit.
All right, good. And tell everybody, they can onewealth.net gets them to One Wealth Advisors. Tell them your ideal clients and how they can connect with you.
We have a very strict minimum. Really, really, really strict minimum. Nice people.
Yeah.
Just reach out to us.
That's a good one. I love this podcast. I get to, talk to people all over the globe, and I'm a business coach. I work with people who are successful but stuck. I help get them unstuck. And what I like about the podcast is I get guests like you who can shed some of their wisdom and their guidance to help people get unstuck. And so you said a lot of things today that I think will do that. But I think community, one of the things we talk about a lot on the show, and you read a lot in content that I put out there, is keep it simple. Keep it simple, be consistent, and think big. That's something that I'm always kind of, preaching. It's how you get unstuck. And I think sometimes people, really overcomplicate things. And sometimes it only takes 2 minutes of a pause to just try to even think and rewind to get to simple. If you can't get to simple, then reach out to guys like David, or reach out to guys like me, or reach out to guys or people that can help you get to simple, because it shouldn't be that complicated. David, I appreciate your time. Again, you guys can reach David at onewealth.net. You can reach me at jondwoskin.com. David, thanks. This was great. I appreciate your time and your insights. Thanks so much.
Thank you.